Recording in progress.
Call the meeting to order. First item we'll deal with is the minutes from May 13th.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of last meeting.
And moved and seconded to approve those meetings. All in favor? Opposed? What carries? So Greg's not here.
Gonna be about 5 minutes, right? So he's the
Anything?
only thing on our agenda, but if anyone has anything else,
I have a question. So I see the dumpster moved. Is the reason for that?
there's a sinkhole near where the dumpster was, and the Public Works Department had a camera run through the pipes, and they found a hole in a 50-plus-year-old pipe that drains pretty much everything from Main Street down to C Street, runs straight through the middle of that parking lot. They found a hole and it's leaching material. It's creating that sinkhole. Planning phases on how to repair it.
Be dug up, right?
Not necessarily there. I don't know if any of you have ever seen any of the videos where they can run this thing through a. They've got it going down. Within a few seconds, it hardens just like heavy plastic, and it can completely seal and holes like that. That's one of the options. The other option we're looking at is to physically sleeve it with PVC. It's probably 15 or so feet deep down, so
Wow.
last resort they want to do is dig, because if they dig, it's gonna be an expensive endeavor. I think they're leaning more towards the sleeving, and once they sleeve it and plug off that leak, they'll fix the area. It's a single, I mean, we're only talking this. But trying to head it off before it gets worse. So the dumpster is over in the other parking lot. That was the best spot that I could come up with it. Stay in that spot until get that fixed, because they were worried that they backed the garbage truck in, and the garbage truck broke through and make a mess, damage the truck. So
All the people in town are gonna be confused.
we have signs over there, and I'm trying to get them to make some more permanent metal signs that point people in the right direction, but
It hasn't looked as bad over there, but it did on the other side.
no.
It hasn't been overflowing when I've been down. Chris, you have something? there?
I just put this stuff under general issues. I have two things. One, this year, the dogs were put in later in Sioux Harbor. And before we voted and talked about having at least a dog in by Maine first for the skits of that. And it's been brought up by multiple people that we didn't do that this year.
I think we weren't very far back from the first, and it really was contract with the weather that prevented it from. Contractor had a sickness run through their crew, and that was really the main reason why it didn't make the May 1st, but. Yes, we always have the option to go over and throw that ramp on that dinghy dock to create access and days notice. You have to.
Okay.
And I was, leaning towards doing that when they told me that they would have it done and set up when they did, so.
So that's still our goal is May first.
Generally, we beat May 1st.
Yeah.
If the weather permits. Sometimes we've had it in, late April. Sometimes early April, sorry.
Yeah, earlier,
Yeah. I think we've even had March. But it's the weather determining.
So is there another goal? Should we shoot for like April 15th first? Is there another goal we should shoot?
I mean,
for?
it's so weather
Friday.
permitting, we do it as soon as possible. in the springtime as we can. Like I said, if the weather is broke and it's gonna stay broke, we can do it in late March if it's doable.
And the other thing was the bearing at the bottom of the dock. Can we replace the bearing?
I got new bearings, we'll reorder them and replace them every year.
So that'll be replaced this year?
Yes. We replace them every year.
I don't think there needs to be a hard date.
No, it's
Why-
so weather depending, we put them in too early and get a horrible storm, it might bite us.
Yeah, but that inside, at least, I'm not saying the main dock, at least that all they're asking for is a dinghy dock. And Sam brought up a number of years ago. That's why we left the dinghy dock down, pulled the ramp up so the ramp could be lowered. If a huge storm came, we pull the ramp back up. I mean, they don't ask for much over there. That's one of the things that they ask, and we started advising them to doing that. I just want to make sure we're not, stop doing that.
It is an expensive endeavor.
Last year, only one of those bearings got replaced.
Yeah, if the other one didn't need replacement, we don't replace it if it doesn't need it.
The problem is, the whole thing is sliding. You and I talked about that before. And it should be lined up and.
Ramp is sliding again?
No, the roller is sliding off one side, so you've got one end of the roller halfway through the bearing. And the other end sticking out.
It physically won't come out through with you can't get that roll out from underneath there unless you pull a bearing.
That's right, but what's happening is the roller is gnawing on that aluminum. And it's sawing it back and forth, and eventually it will. It's wearing, it's gonna.
I've had that roller rebuilt a few times. And it lasts 5 or 6 years and it needs to.
Well, the roller is steel, that's not the problem. When it
No, I
goes
know.
through the aluminum ramp, that's when you're gonna have a problem.
The interior rod that runs through that roller,
Yeah,
that has to be replaced every 7 years.
those bearings, they should have, each one should have 2 set screws on that you could, if you tighten them down in good shape. They have
We
whatever.
do have set screws, and we crank them down and within a day or two, they're gone. They don't hold because of the thrashing that thing takes back and forth.
It's funny, the bearings, they should.
Just got a message that Zoom's not letting someone in. It says, wait.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't paying attention.
Sorry, we're not-
No,
So you pay attention one thing at a time. But yes, I have new bearings and we'll get them installed.
For the roller, for both
Yeah.
ends? Okay.
We replace the ones that need. It's a quick process, it only takes 15 or 20 minutes.
Okay, so are we ready to move on? Greg is with us?
Stuck in.
Hard to do. So. Where are we at?
I think they're looking for an overview from you on how the process is gonna work towards getting us a large engineering firm. Because that's what your goal is for
Yeah.
what we're asking you to do.
So I think the course of process is generally engage in a workshop of what we're looking for and make your qualifications based criteria of selection and put together an RFP. And those are statements of prior projects, team members. Decide whether it's carte blanche, New England newspaper, select bid, and then work through, compile all the existing information, including the earlier reports. And give as much information as possible with the existing emissions and your program. Part of that being, anything that changes on the dock, if you're gonna rebuild the wharf, what things need better or should be considered. Some of those bigger tips, not to the minute detail, those things might affect on how, who you select and what you want to do. And I also think that engagement in what you do for rising tides and writing a proposal that selects them. And then we put it out, however it is in the advertisements, and then there's interview processes and you guys rate them, and then there's a selection process. Typically, as I said, it would be more of a qualifications-based selection with some indications of costs and then the grading criteria. So we would help work with you guys to form that document that can be put out that you think fits your goals and what you in the town want to accomplish, and then assist through selecting them. And maybe it's generating questions, maybe it's a closed door review afterwards. That's basically how we presented that we would assist if you guys were so interested.
So as one of Rick's things was is getting an update. And I know it's like where we stand or what we need. And we go on our break now, just like, hey, I'm doing this or nothing's happened. If you could just an email to John or Rick, just to like update where we're at. So you don't have to come in every meeting, but you know what I mean, just where you're.
Sure. So thinking back, and this is just where I think I'm at, understood you guys were interested in advancing this. We put a proposal together to advance that and hadn't heard back, so we haven't advanced it, right? So that's what I know at this point, which is fine. You guys have your you know, sort of a timetable that needs to be worked with. And so whatever, if we're engaged to move ahead, yeah. So what are the steps? First thing would be then, whether you're on break or not, is make sure we develop the program and what people are going to receive so they know what the goals are. And that's a collective effort with the group after we're engaged to start helping streamline.
So we were presented with the RFP, correct? Like from you, that quote. We were said that, so do we need to make a motion to say?
No, we've already done that, and my intention was I would have that signed and back to Greg so he could start after July 1.
So where's our hold up or?
Money, July 1, that's
Yeah.
all right. Our budget's always been played out for the
Yeah.
season, and
So July 1 RFP will be signed?
well, get it from before tensions that we'll start after July 1, once we have a new budget to work with.
So July 1 RFP can be funded.
What tonnage do we build wharf to?
So there's probably a couple of standards. We know, like Bernard Wolf that we've done in the past, they have particular needs, and so parts of that wharf were designed for certain trucks. The bigger sort of loadings you find are the emergency vehicles. Should a fire truck have to get out there, it's like an HS 20-44 rating, which is pretty much the highest thing you can get on there. You know, is there a travel lift going out there? So I think some of that could be, there are standards to apply to it. And if you have a specific standard, that could be in there as well. I think that would be, I don't know, we need to specify now. We may get the pros and cons of not pay as you go, but the options through the design process of what they mean to you and your, you know, the costing completed. But the heavily loaded fire truck with water is what goes over most of the bridges. That's pretty significant.
What we have now must be rare.
It's pretty, yeah. I mean, it's probably way beyond that from what I've seen on the piers and the bases down there. Of course,
So we have a dry hydrant down there. So, and then we have a hydrant that's kind of by the grass, just past the flagpole.
Mhm.
So you pump from the dry hydrant and then there's a line that runs up to Main Street and that's used during the Main Street fire. So actually the hydrant in this design needs to be moved out farther because when the tide went down too far, it wasn't accessible. You gotta stop using it. Water company wouldn't get the water. So that's something we have to incorporate in this is that dry hydrant. because as we've already seen, because of that fire. You know,
So
that's,
those fire trucks come down to the dock and fill up their tank.
so the pumper goes down to the dock, backs up, hooks to a dry hydrant. There's a fixed line, a fixed connection that comes from that dock up to Main Street to a hydrant.
Basically pumping.
And that was many years ago. There's a movie theater, well, you older guy. No, but it burned and that was like the development because that there was a Main Street fire long before the last one. And that was incorporated into design because of that. And the last time we used it, the last Main Street fire, we actually, the tide went out and we stopped having usage of it, ran out of water for a while, and the fire kind of got away from us. There, what happens, yes.
Like one of the things too, also between the whatever firm you choose is gonna need a sub consultant who's, or they may have one, but it's gonna be geotechnical. They're gonna have to get borings in and around, maybe through the surface, and that's the timing to do that. Lab results, recommendations and stuff before you can get designed. That ends up taking some time because there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen and equipment that's necessary to do that type of work. I'm not saying that pressure, I'm saying like there's a lot of let's say not specialties, but team players of that one team you choose that have substantial events leading up to the design and bid.
So they would have to bore right through the main deck?
They may, I mean, they need to develop what they need to, and if you can, again, if you can drill down through and get as much information you can on the interior, it's wise to minimize surprises later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Assuming that they would patch it all silver.
Yeah.
Like just with G's.
The difference between finding, I mean, looks like there is ledge in places there, where there isn't, there's probably gonna be different design elements in their tool belts to help support it. They'll have to not just drill to ledge, but they will pull samples of the ledge to get a rock quality index, and then also pull samples of soils, and then off to lab to get compressive strength, shear strengths and stuff, so the engineers design what they can rely upon.
Would there be a record of what they built?
Uh,
There may be something up in Kyle's files somewheres of archives, but we physically don't have anything down at the marina.
Yeah. But I mean.
The only
That
thing
was,
we have is the survey that was done a handful of years ago, but it's R5.
Yep.
REI or
GI
GEI.
and it's work done by Wine Schmidt at one time
Yeah.
before that.
That would have been 20 years.
I had a similar work with Fall Harbor in their ferry terminal a few years ago. They were like, what are we gonna do? We need evaluation that's outside of what our office can handle. We helped them find a proposal, and that worked pretty well. I don't think they ever funded the project, but and depending on we can choose how it is, and they have regular updates and how they are going to interact with your thing as well. We can specify that, like regular updates in writing, which is good because they have to think about it, put it in writing what they've done the last, and try to time it before their billing cycles, but every 3 weeks or 2 weeks for development.
how old is the pier?
1954.
So basically, we're on hold until July 1st.
Yeah, which is not far away.
I know, but we go on break. So after you hand the money over, that's done, can we just get like I know we'll be on break, just like what's going on? Like an email to John to pass on. That was one thing Rick said, just we want to keep the constant communication, you know, so things don't jump ahead and.
Yeah, and I don't know that yes, that makes sense to me. It may be that if you're on that break and we say, hey, here's a template, we're gonna get feedback on how it, we want to work in a box. We want to make sure that the committee is active in it. But right off the bat, we say, here's the template, here's some ideas, and here's how some RFQs have worked in the past.
RFQ.
This is, well,
Because it keeps
request for proposal, request for qualifications is more like it.
So what's the RFP? That's the money, RFQs for,
Proposal,
okay,
RFQ is more like qualifications.
Okay.
Yep. And that may be the first step, is understanding the difference between qualifications-based selection and so I can pull that together, give an example, you guys can digest it if you decide that's July. When's your next meeting?
September.
September?
I
figure we
figured
get
it
to summer.
give you plenty of time to get something together to bring back and
Sure. Yep, and I think disseminating information that can allow you guys to be thinking forward to that first meeting, so we have a good workshop to say, yeah, how far out of line are we with sort of the framework for how we want to present it, and also timeframe. Like
And our hopes is to have a warrant article for next town meeting, so we need to have selected a bidder, get a warrant article written by into late February.
that's just for design, engineering, correct?
That's, yes, to hire the engineer.
Engineering.
Yep. Goes fast.
And where do we stand on, what's your communication with the people that did the survey? Where do you stand with that?
Zero. No communication since that. I mean, that was GEI.
Yes,
I've worked with them in the past, but I have no communication about their study in this document.
they put out a wonderful product and I think they would be up in our top of our selections that we had to.
Very responsible, qualified.
They already gave us quotes, granted they're a few years old on, where we'd end up, but the original quote was a 1.5, but I figured 2+ at this time.
So we. Nobody's gonna like this, but should we have a meeting this summer or are we gonna be behind the ball if we?
I don't think it'd be behind the ball. I think that if we get some information from this, then is even if, I don't know how they operate, but if there is feedback on that leads up to the meeting, we can be productive with just comments leading up to there, I think is,
Yes, as they say, this meeting could be, and I think we could, email back and forth
yeah, and then
if you had.
I know we've all discussed before that we need to go out, there's gonna be a ramp down in the parking lot. And we need to expand the footprint, meaning that we have the footprint of the pilings, but it needs to expand over that. And we need to go up at least 3 feet. And so what we're trying to accomplish is that when you have the wood there, you can't walk by, you have the pilings there, so we go over the piling footprint, so your base pilings, your supports, we're gonna go the edges on the side of the ports.
Yep.
And then maybe we possibly have a walkway, pedestrian walkway, in the middle is our ultimate goal, with utilities run underneath. And then being 3 feet higher, because, I mean, we had a 100-year storm, we understand ramp down, that's up to public works, the rest of it, that was our, that's our initial objectives.
Is 3 feet a given or is there any?
That was the thing we observed when at the flooding at the time. I mean, that's kind of an engineering thing, but that would also be on top of where we exist today. So we have columns there should be about 6 to 8 inches above our existing kind of footprint. So where those the edge pilings are to be on top of that. And then have our edge on the sides of those, so we're not like expanding past our footprint. On the ocean base, the seaport base.
3 feet is the standard that people have been coming in the planning board for. Raise their dogs. In anticipation of it.
That's the fleet.
Another 100 feet.
On there.
The fleet raised theirs 3 feet. Numerous homes have always been 3 feet every time.
We're not looking at building on to or reinforcing the dock that's there.
No.
What we're looking at is removing
100% replacement.
100%. Okay.
The fixing what was there was almost $1 million, and they said 15 or 20 years we'd get added to.
Yep.
So for double the price, we'll get a brand new one that may take us out another 75 to 100 years. Me either. Not a person in the room was.
Never know.
Yeah,
Cryogenic freezing, you're.
So thank you, Greg.
Are expectations crazy about getting it on the town water?
No, I think, like, warrant February, we can pencil that out. Have, proposals back mid-December. Go out, give them 2 months, probably want to be out looking for it by end of October, I'd say. So I think that's realistic. I mean, I think that to get good response, you need that sort of time built in. But I don't think you're behind the ball.
As long as we do our work.
Yeah,
Well, it's more Greg's work and we just
Well,
answer some questions for Greg.
probably in there, you know, built into that is that you'll, you know, 5 respondents, you probably want to maybe have a Q&A with 2 of them. Right? So we want to schedule, we could do that in a day if we rank them up. And then that gives us time to do a little more.
we can also have what extra meetings.
Yeah, sure. We did that with some other things
Yeah.
in the past, but we'll have 2 meetings scheduled within that time frame. And if we had to add a third or even a fourth, that wouldn't, you know, it wouldn't be extensive meetings, so.
No, I guess what I'm saying, but we may have to step up to do extra work.
It's not the first time. Done it before.
Yeah.
Important, it's probably the most important thing that I'll have done in, you know, my 20+ years that I'll be down there. And it will go through multiple generations on us, so.
You replace those short pilings with that big storm where the docks went above the pilings.
I've replaced some of them and I've extended the others and they've done well. Hopefully none of us ever see a storm like that again, but.
Yep.
The big scheme of it, we really had no damage. Just a little bit of grout washed away from the shoreline. It's really the only physical damage.
My boat up in Soames Harbor now, and there's somebody's dock.
Sure.
That's up on the shore, right at the harbor entrance.
But every other dock in the harbor, they got lifted and destroyed, or, you know, we're very lucky at that point. It helps us.
Here,
And so,
David's one,
yeah,
the whole thing.
Any further questions for Greg? Thank you for coming in this evening.
Thank you, Greg.
Yeah, thanks, guys. And I'll,
Moving us along.
I'll communicate with John and show that to with some general knowledge, so we'll help you guys start stewing on it. And, if we need to meet or we need to communicate by email, you know. Thank you, guys.
right.
See you.
I'm before the asphalt ring.
Do
We have any special messages from the select board?
No, no. I haven't been impeached.
Yeah.
Rodney's here as a civilian.
Yeah.
No such thing once you're on that point.
I just have some questions when you get down there when we get.
I don't think we have anything else. So
This is it. This is-
Well, a lot of this really,
Okay, well, that
Rodney first.
a lot of this isn't how committee, because it's up in the parking lot, but I wondering about the only thing about the toilets going over Seal Island.
yeah, we had a conversation about that before you came in. I actually talked with the highway superintendent today and everything is just waiting on the contractor. That's Brian Henkel's project. Money's there, everything's approved. I just don't know what the time frame, because he didn't have an answer for me, so.
And, And so that's the same with that big rock that's still taking up, I mean, they set the pole, but rock now just needs to be.
They need to concrete or do whatever they're gonna do around the pole, because that's part of what they've been paid to do.
Yeah.
Once they're done, that rock needs to go in front of that pole.
Oh, yeah, yes.
Per person saying, we will allow you to do this, but it has to be concreted in and it has to have.
Yeah.
Rock in front.
Yeah, that's right. So that would still be
Keep
there.
someone from coming out over the hill and slipping and sliding and snapping it up.
Yeah. Have you heard anything else about, the ultrasound, like on the pier, the parking lot?
We've discussed it, but nothing has moved forward because we want to do the pier too.
Yeah.
So,
Cause that really should, cause, well, I said last time with that culvert, not the culvert, the drain, that settled all.
yeah, we discussed it because of the sinkhole we have going on down here. You know, I brought up the sinkholes that are popping up over there. And they said they're looking at them, but I don't know exactly what they've done about them.
Since the ultrasound is made here, so that's us, not the.
Yeah.
Here,
But Rodney thinks that the whole parking lot needs to be done.
but can we make a motion to do it? Do we have the funding with the availability to do an ultrasound made here?
It would have to come out of CIP money and depending, we have the money. I would just have to get the selectmen to approve it, our portion of it. The parking lot essentially would be public works.
The pier is more concerning than anything else, cause you've got, holes in the tar. You know, where, I mean, things are leaving. I mentioned before, we've got a sand beach on both north and south of the pier.
Well, I mean, the whole harbor is sand. I mean,
Yeah, that's not from the harbor. That was never there until they filled the pier with sand.
you know, if we're gonna do the pier and the parking lot, it's cost prohibitive to do them both at the same time.
Yeah.
And that just, you know, between me and Brian, we've got to figure out how and when, and
Right, right.
I know you discussed this with him too, I don't know.
Yeah, just briefly, I'll contact him again. Cause he tells me the same thing. He's talked to you, you talked to him, but we talked to us.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to ultrasound with Seal Harbor Pier.
I speak against that, because if we're gonna do the parking lot, let's do it all as one. Spend.
Well, yeah,
So let's see if he talks to them about that. I'm just saying, we make, put this motion forward, then maybe they'll do theirs at the same time.
I'll second it, just for the fun of it. Any discussion on this motion?
When's the last time it was looked at?
1895.
never.
When they,
It's time then.
when they built it, they didn't, I mean, it fell down before it was done. And so it's actually 50 feet shorter than it was supposed to be, and there was a big fight. And, they actually filled it with sand, which, who knows why they would do that, but rather than the big bony stuff, you know, so they ended up putting piles around it, which that wasn't gonna be how it was, but they did that so it wouldn't fall in even more.
Sure.
Okay. I think that's it. I just,
We have a motion second on the floor.
We have any more discussion?
John, do you think it needs to be ultrasounded or?
I mean, there's obviously something going on there. It's probably safe bet to look before one day something happens, you know, it's
oh, you're over there all the time. You've got to see the holes in the pier.
Yeah, no, I see him. I'm just wanting to know what John's opinion was. That's all. I agree, that it is concerning, but I didn't know if it was, a surface thing or, a structural thing. All right.
Any other discussion?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, let's move the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Guys have it. Sorry?
So I know that 10 or 15 years ago, we voted to change the system for deciding who uses the commercially the piers to lottery. And I just want to make a suggestion that we think about that. And I'm sure it's a pain in the neck to change, but as Greg even said, you put out a request for qualification. And I wonder we have an opening coming up. And maybe it's better to have people who want that space chosen by qualification and not just by chance.
Well, I think the thought is that we're gonna put out the request with a list of requirements. Everybody that fulfills all of those requirements, that group is going to get put into a lottery and one of them will be drawn. You guys get, I mean, there may be 10, you may say that only 5 of them actually fit all of the qualifications. But what do you do when you've got 5 that are all equally provided everything you asked for? The only way that's why the lottery's there, because it takes out anything that says that any of you are biased.
But even with that lottery, people found workarounds.
So what happened last time? What was we had one person that did multiple
Right.
things. Would that happen this time, John? Could that happen this time?
If you guys say that only one per person, I would say that you would stop that, not multiple.
Or we could say, someone who already has a permit can't apply again.
So that would be.
Qualification, yeah.
So, it's something I've thought about, how many people are allowed to have so many permits? But this would be another thing that's gotta go to a ordinance change. So, one entity, one person can't own all the commercial operations.
All of them or can?
But let's say 2 or 3 or whatever we determine, the town determines, what needs to be. So we had, so what we did was we took away the ownership rights. But by doing that, it has to be a fair playing field. So there's a set thing, anyone can apply and anyone has a fair chance. To change that, we have to go to our ordinance for those requirements saying, okay, you don't own, you currently have 3 commercial leases. You can't have 4.
Sure.
Like we did, we redid the buyer's permit, you know what I mean? What?
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. Okay, so at some point, though, there's gonna be qualifications that we're asking of these people that Story wants, and so are you saying all of those qualifications then need to be put in the ordinance? Because there could be it could be that, we want you to have so much insurance, or we want you to be local and not from away, or whatever it might be that Story has in mind,
All of the standards are already there.
But they're more like insurance or,
Insurance.
So what else were you considering?
well, I just think maybe someone, there might be a service that someone has for the islands or for the
Yeah.
town, which is much more needed, let's say.
I
Then,
think in the past, the only particular one that we've talked about that has always got to stay what it is the ferry service. They're gonna be at a deficit for water taxes this year because
Right.
of John Dwelly not running, and
Could we specify that water taxi?
Well, right now you're specifying that it has to be a 6-pack.
it has to be a 6-pack, because
Yeah.
that's what was given up. And
Right.
it's drop off, pickup only, there's no scheduled service for that slot.
So, I mean, that's pretty
So
much.
they can ultimately, they could do anything they wanna do with 6 people. They could do water taxi, they can have 6 people fishing, they can do
Right,
whatever, as long
Yeah.
as they're only drop off, pick up and
Right,
6
right,
people
right.
there.
They could do like
They
the
could propose any of that.
sunset tours or whatever.
Sure.
Yeah.
And John Dwelly did that stuff too. He took people out. It wasn't always water taxi. He would take people up the sound, do custom cruises. Any of that's on the table for this 6-pack position.
Is that the kind of service, were you
I
thinking
just
other
thought,
services or?
I just thought the lottery has its own set of problems.
It does, but it takes any chance of any of us being biased towards any particular person. And everyone that fits the bill for everything you guys have asked for goes in a hat, and we have somebody that's not involved draw out of the hat and.
Well, the problem with that is
Fair
it seems,
way.
it seems like it could end up leaving somebody like a young local guy that wants to get going, that lives right here, he'd get knocked off by somebody from Baja or Southwest or Ellsworth.
It's always a possibility.
I mean, unless we had in the ordinance that we wanna, we prefer, like, we
But the-
prefer local over.
Fortunate part of that is if you want to do that, then we're gonna run this spot empty for 2 years.
No, I understand. I get that part, John.
So this,
I'm just saying,
But that may be a great thing to put on your agenda for
yeah,
next year's town meeting to change the ordinance, but
yeah.
we did that, we've done that already twice for the moorings.
Right,
For
and
the
the
seafood
permit.
buyers,
Right.
so your percentage,
Yep, yep,
so
Yeah.
the same.
can certainly apply.
but our current ordinance says that we have to list this in September.
Okay, yeah.
So,
I'm not trying to force.
no, I get you,
I'm
but
just-
it would be a great thing to take
Yeah.
up for next.
We can,
And I think we have to, my thing is about not having one, corporate entity and
Yeah.
it will slowly take over.
right, have a monopoly.
Right.
At some point. Yep.
And island needs, like everyone's island needs, to local needs, like, it's something we've not addressed, but we've done, I mean, it takes time, we've done a lot to protect right now, and I think it's another thing that needs to be done.
Yeah, so that's a good point then. So let's put that on.
Ordinance review.
Ordinance review that we'll change that to be more favorable to what we want. And it won't happen for this round, but it'll happen for the future rounds. Unless everyone feels strongly that we have to hold it for another year, but it doesn't sound like that.
The ordinance says we can't.
There we go.
And I don't know if the last time that one came up, if there was a Mount Desert resident that applied.
Yeah.
Somebody applied for free or something. Yeah, under the
Luckily,
lives,
they didn't get any of them. So, but
but that's what we have to be aware of, strong and whatever.
That's one of the things that Rick was talking about. He told me that they had one lottery one time and a guy from Southwest met all three, one guy.
yeah, he put in 3, but he didn't get chosen because someone else got picked.
Oh, okay.
But he tried, he had his son, him, and somebody else, I think.
Anything further, sorry?
Just something to think about.
Okay, good. Howie, you have an item?
Yeah, John, now that the ordinance was passed with favorable residents getting a more favorable thing, how is that working out? What's going on?
It's, I'm working with online mooring to help us build out a system
Yeah,
that
reflects.
I don't know if you guys are all aware, but I have a different wait list for every series in every harbor. So,
I've seen it. I've gone online and seen
and,
it.
they're trying to figure out a way to, I think what we're gonna end up doing is splitting and having 2 wait lists in every harbor for every series.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to split off the residents and the non-residents is the only way that we're gonna be able to do it, and working towards getting towards the 20% saturation.
Yeah.
My best guess is right now we're close to 50-50.
Wow.
So it potentially could be years before some series ever see a non-resident mooring. But on the other hand, some series within that, if a one comes up and there's no residents on the series, I've got to give it to a non-resident.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it will take I'll be long gone before it ever
Equalizes.
equalizes to the 20%, but Adam may be retired before that happens, but because, you know, there's some that there's quite a few residents in, but there's quite a few in what we've been doing research. There's a lot of series that there's not a resident even on the list.
Sure,
So-
like a 600 series or something, right?
Or some
Yeah.
even smaller,
Yeah.
so,
No, but I think overall the residents are gonna be
but
really
yes,
pleased.
Online Mooring just did a massive update on their system last night. And they're working with us to try to figure out how to best implement this.
Yep.
And I think their system is pretty robust, and I think it will work because they can custom tailor ours, say, different than Southwest Partners.
Yeah,
So, and Southwest uses the same system, a lot of towns do, so I think it'll work, but it's gonna take me some time before it's fully implemented, but in the meantime, when I go to a list and see, you know, I can look at it
yeah,
and pick out the resident,
right.
but
You
it'd
can
be
manage.
nice to be able to go and look at it like I look at it now and everything's all lined up and it does it for me.
Yeah. Great.
So they were pretty good organizations.
It is, yeah, there's 4 or 5 new ones that have popped up and, you know, they're always down at our Harbor Master Conference and they have decent systems, but for what we do, online mooring, I think is still the best one out there. And it costs the town $0.
Hmm.
So the $7 fee gets picked up by the mooring. So there's no cost at all to us. The other ones have cost involved that would fall under the town. And I don't think they're as good a system.
Where are they
We're
based?
10+ years in with online mooring. They've been really good to us. I think we were the second town in Maine that jumped on with them. They're based out of, I think Connecticut. And they have harbors all over the world now, so. I'm happy with them.
And that was the guy who came and gave the presentation.
No, that was
No, that was a
That was
flat.
Marina High.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's been done if you belong to Marina High, or you can go on and it's like a drone's eye view, or kind of like a boat's eye view coming in the harbor to our facility. It just shows it's for people that have never been here, that, you know, they want to see what it's like coming into Northeast Harbor, and they can watch the drone come in and go right to the dock system. It's pretty neat. And that's $0 cost to us also.
Is it from that bell they're gonna take away?
The bell over by Cranberry.
Oh, wow, I don't know.
None of ours are disappearing.
Highway, did you complete your questions?
Thank you.
Well, it's been
Thanks, John.
pretty good free-for-all meeting here with not a big. Jim's been in.
I just wanted to know, we've got, better signage than the commercial skiffs down here and the public dock is,
We did the 25 and
no, but we talked about, you know, the outside or the east end or the outside end of the,
17 and under. 4 hours.
yeah. And the commercial guys are meant to be inside of that. That's what we talked about last.
We talked about is the enforcement and then having a set date, we set it July 1st. That they'd be either
Did you get
moved.
a notice in your skiff?
No, I have a permit.
We've been putting notices in skiffs that, hey, your boat doesn't have a sticker on it. Please come up and get your commercial dinghy sticker, and we've had quite a few that have come up. I think Jen, you told me there's 3 or 4 that still haven't come up and gotten their sticker yet, but so we're out of what's down there, there's 3 or 4 that still need to get their sticker, but so we're trying. It's, you know.
Come in tomorrow.
Just hearing
You said after a set date, you were one of them?
Did you get a piece of paper?
No.
You didn't? It must have blown away.
I just went in last week.
Did you?
Is that only over here, John?
Yeah, because the inside of the public dock there is commercial dinghy tie-up. You have to either be a fisherman or
Yeah.
a commercial operator, to get a permit.
Are we gonna enforce then stickers that, or boats that don't have stickers that are there overnight?
That's my intention.
But the whole, one thing was that outside. What is,
That's where 17 and under can go. That doesn't mean that if the commercial is all full and we have so many commercial dinghies, the commercial dinghies are gonna go right out. I mean, ultimately, that would be,
keep them from tying, the first, everybody wants to tie on that outside cleat. And
Most of they don't, they can get inside. Most people are naturally lazy and go in and use
the whole point of it was that outside end has always been designated that 4 hour period.
that they, for the 17 and under, could go there. But if it's full, it's full. If it's full of our commercial dinghies that we've permitted, then
When the half the other flow inside is empty because the commercial guys don't wanna go around down there, it's not full, John. That's what we talked about, and that's.
But that whole thing's full a lot of times with skiffs.
What we talked about was the enforcement after a certain date of July first. Meaning that we enforced the ones that didn't have stickers on them, we weren't enforcing getting them out. Yeah, we reviewed the orders multiple times, and he's got all the power in the world, they can be removed at their own expense and cost.
I mean,
And ticketed and not paying, like, it all boils down to him.
on most days, that commercial dinghy dock is full.
Yeah, but last year, John, no one's even getting permits, the last few years, they're not, because you weren't enforcing it. And that, so
I mean, we're trying,
And then-
we've been throwing some warnings out to get people to come in and get their stickers. Once we've given them time to do that, if you guys want, I will go down there and hammer that.
So we want to turn in the ordinance, it's very,
You know, but I'm trying to get them to comply right now. And once they have been given a week or two's notice, and then we can go down and I feel good about writing tickets
are you gonna remove boats per ordinance from their violation at the owner's expense?
if we need to. I yanked one out of the water and dragged it up to the trap pile the other day. So it's can be done.
I mean, it's free for the taking, if it's over the trap pile.
No. It will eventually get crushed and go to the dump if that's the only place it's gonna go.
It's a hard, it's a hard job, I'm being,
I'm with you.
it's not fair to throw it all on him.
No,
And there's, and then they,
honestly, it's, in my opinion, it's some of the lower hanging fruit. There's a lot more other stuff that is more important than worrying about whether someone's got a sticker on the dinghy, but you are right,
but you can't,
Are
a
trying.
lot of it's commuters, they commute from the islands and both, they pull in, port back, they know his hours. They know the weekends at certain times of the year, he gets abused mostly by the island. Non-stop.
it's also people that come in and rent transient moorings
True.
that, you know, make a mistake and go to the wrong dock. So there's always that in there too. And, you know, I try my best. I can run registrations on Maine registrations, and we try to do that before we, you know, hammer somebody to make sure we're not giving someone a ticket that rented a mooring for a night and, you know, but
Then again, if they're in violation, they deserve a ticket, so.
But, you know, there really isn't any clear markings there to keep them out of there either.
There's a sign that says commercial skiffs only, and it points back. It's a tough balance, and it's a short-term problem, but a lot of it is that the people that are actually allowed to use it don't get their stickers because there's no enforcement.
But, you know, like I said, we're down to, I think, 3 or 4 that haven't. And, you know, we're trying. Once we get them all handed out, then it's easy to go down there and walk the pier, and if you don't see a sticker, you can go down and do something.
How much are the tickets?
It's determined on what box I want to check,
Oh, I see.
depending on whether they're a first-time offender or, you know, anywhere from a warning to, I think, $50.
So any violations of provisions of this ordinance, specifically penalties set forth herein, or specifically penalty otherwise not provided by laws of the state of Maine, shall be subject to monetary penalties, so forth, 30A MRSR 4452, amended, and includes a limitation and minimum penalty for specific violation of $100. The maximum penalty for $2,500.
I don't think that's anything to do with dinghy dog.
So when you go
My
back.
dinghy dog
When you go to violations of people not responding to ordinance, it goes back to this subsection, and we brought it back to that, and the ordinance changes for me.
I think the $2,500 fine would set
It's
us.
not but $100 is stuff for people, and they don't pay $100 fine, they lose their rights to being here, we spelled this out numerous times.
My tickets are already pre-printed with the numbers on them. So
Alright,
they
just put
started,
25 there.
you know,
But the dinghy dock, we did change all that.
then I think they go to 50. There may be $100 check mark on there. Not quite sure. I haven't looked at one since last year, so.
Just add a zero to all those numbers.
Or two.
Change it 20 to 250 to
We
5.
need money for that new pier.
I was just curious.
The sign down there does point to where the commercial fishing is meant to go, so. I think, I don't know if it's in the ordinance, not, that used to.
So even the public flow here, so when violators should be fined, in accordance with Article X. $100 fine,
But we need to take it.
because we're just,
Give it two.
then, and it says, other acts warrants and the vessel may be removed by the owner's expense and risk.
I think $100 fine's a little much for expanding over the 2-hour limit myself, but. You know, there's other things in there that would warrant that, but, you know, a parking ticket for a car is only $35, so. We usually start with the $20.
But where do we start enforcing, we change the ordinance? So we say that how we select people for the commercial dock, and we don't do stuff, we're gonna pick or choose how we enforce the ordinance, that's it, that's a slippery slope.
Oh, I get you, but I'm just working off the tickets that are printed that say Town of Mount Desert on them. That we've been using all along.
Well, given the fact that hardly any tickets have been written at all in previous years, let's see what.
Oh, we write more tickets than you probably
Oh, yeah.
imagine. I mean, my guys are down there even today during the rain. Every hour they're down checking the public dock. And they're down there determining whether a boat has been there over the 2 hours. And we start with warnings this time of year and we escalate when we need to. And it's up to the officer or the kid who goes down there with a clipboard, when he looks at something and it's gone past its time, it's his discretion whether he feels that it warrants a ticket.
But that's not under his discretion, it's under the ordinance.
But anytime an officer does anything and pulls over a car, it's his discretion whether he wants.
They're duly officers.
Yeah.
Of the state and the board.
It's their, discretion. And, you don't always go down and put a ticket on with a monetary value on it the first time. You give people a chance with a warning. And the next time you see the boat, if they continue, we escalate up the chain on the check marks. And generally, people figure it out after they get hit for even a $20 bill, hurts people. And we, work up through it.
Probably run into that in about every harbor, right? You have the same problem, sail out.
There's not a
No, it's
public dock or a dinghy dock in
The island guy.
most of the United States. It doesn't have the exact same problems that we.
So I'm playing devil's advocate.
Yeah,
It says things maybe they have the choice then, but I'm trying to get them to escalate you have the ability to lay down the law and clean up the problem. You're not gonna be a nice guy to do it, and it's tough at times, but at some point we have to. There's both commuters, there's repeat violators, people, at some point we have to start, because the usage have gone up. It's the same with the parking we've got. At some point you have to step it up, and that's all I'm saying. And
We can crank it up.
You're right, because Cranberry Island has sealed harbor dock tied up.
Sure.
Every afternoon.
And that's something but our whole, it took us a long time to enforce the park, and you know what, it's not a small ticket now, they get enough to get them to. But it's taken some time, and at some point we have the authorities all here. And we just have to sometimes, those repeat people. And we've had like.
And it's too bad, sometimes they're friends, but they
No,
still,
exactly.
you know.
It could be me as well, like if I'm in violation, it doesn't matter, you know.
There's only, like most things, a few that really abuse it and there's
Yeah, I
some that are there
mean,
once
they're
in a
the
while.
largest abusers of our system. Both harbors.
Well, committee, we've had a good robust discussion here.
I have a question though to John about that. John, are they abusers because they don't have anywhere to go? I mean, is that their only option
Yes,
to abuse the
they
system?
do have Southwest Harbor, but essentially that is correct. You know, I think opportunities were passed on years ago by the Cranberry Isles that could have benefited their people and they didn't do anything or couldn't. And, you know,
They're
Buzzard has been extremely kind in our resources to them and
we get abused. I mean, they have their own pier, they enforce their own pier, they ticket. Go after people that tie up illegally on their pier that Cranberry Islands in Manson.
Oh, in Manson.
Yeah,
Okay, I didn't know
they
where.
have to have a permit, yeah, so they have their, they have a whole parking facility, they have a whole pier, multiple float system. And they go after, some people don't even wanna pay or be involved in that, you know, so it's easy to come over here. And run them out.
Last year, there was a 22-foot boat tied up at the skiff float for a couple of weeks. I've got a boat, they won't let me in more, and I'm gonna use my boat, I'm tying on this, that's the attitude.
Where was that boat from?
I don't know, I didn't know the guy. A huge outboard, like 150 horse outboard. And then, if you say anything about it, they'll get puckered up, you know.
Put Steve on.
Yeah.
The agenda, I haven't addressed general issues or old business, but I think we've talked about everything, so.
Motion to adjourn.
Next thing is adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
In September.
Enjoy the summer.
Yeah.
Have a good summer. everyone.
We're